How selling your home in Dubuque actually works, step by step without the overwhelm. Okay, so one thing I have noticed that a lot of people do feel overwhelmed by the idea of selling their house is that they just don't even know where to start. I think that it's partially because people feel like they're somehow supposed to already know how the process works. But the truth is that most people only sell a handful of homes their entire life, or maybe just one. And so if you're thinking about selling your home in Dubuque and you're unsure of where to start, this video is just meant to help walk you through this process step by step in a way that makes sense. Very simplified. You don't have to have everything figured out before you reach out to your realtor. There is not really a perfect time to talk to your realtor. People contact me a year before they move, and some people contact me after they've already started packing. Some people are downsizing, some people are relocating, some people are trying to buy and sell at the same time, and some people just genuinely don't even know where to begin yet. And that's really okay. A huge part of my job is really figuring out, where are you right now in the process? What are your goals and what feels overwhelming? And how do we get from where you are now to where you want to be? Let's figure out your why. Usually one of the first conversations I have with sellers is really about, why are you moving? Because every situation is different. Sometimes people need more space because their family is growing, and sometimes people need less space. Sometimes stairs are becoming difficult. Sometimes people are relocating for work. Sometimes life just changes. And the understanding your why is really what helps shape timeline, strategy, pricing goals, what's important to you throughout the process, because there usually isn't just one goal. Yes, obviously, people want to make the most money as possible for their home, but sometimes convenience can matter too, and sometimes timing really matters. Sometimes minimizing the stress is the most important thing, and sometimes staying in a certain school district also matters. All of those things can help shape the strategy. That brings us to pricing your home. This is probably one of the biggest questions that people have. What is my home worth? And one thing people are often surprised by is that Zillow estimates and real market value are definitely not always the same thing, because what your home could realistically sell for depends on a lot of things: location, condition, updates, buyer demand, especially what similar homes are actually selling for right now in the market. So usually what I do is create a market analysis using similar homes that have recently sold nearby. And honestly, pricing matters a lot. If a house is priced too high compared to what the market is supporting, it usually will sit longer. And the problem with sitting too long is that buyers start wondering, is something wrong with it? And then on the flip side, if the price is too low, the market usually corrects that pretty quickly through buyer interest and competition. So the goal is really to find that sweet spot where the home feels competitive and attractive while still maximizing the value. That brings us to preparing your house. One thing I think that sellers can really get hung up on is the feeling like that their house has to be absolutely perfect before putting it on the market. I don't feel like that is true. If you've lived in your home, life has happened there, someone else is very likely going to love your home too, and even if it isn't perfect, it doesn't mean that we don't make a plan. Usually we'll walk through the home together and create a list, prioritize what matters most, and figure out what changes are actually worth doing. Sometimes it's decluttering. Sometimes maybe it is painting. Sometimes it's cleaning. And maybe sometimes it's just rearranging the furniture or getting rid of a few pieces. I really try to remind sellers to give themselves a little bit of grace during this process, because selling a home can feel really emotional and overwhelming enough as it is. marketing and showing the home. Once the house is ready, we're ready to move on to the marketing phase. Nowadays, impressions happen online way before buyers ever walk through the front door. So photography, video, online marketing, social media marketing, and presentation matters a lot. Then we start scheduling the showings, and this is usually the phase where sellers start to feel a little emotionally vulnerable because there's strangers walking through their home. And that's very normal. And sometimes people can get discouraged if they don't get an offer immediately. Usually what we're doing in this phase is gathering data on the market. How much activity are we getting? What feedback are buyers giving us? Are we attracting the right buyers, and do we need to make adjustments? Which brings us to offers and negotiations. Once those offers come in, people sometimes expect negotiations to feel like this huge hostile battle. And honestly, I really don't feel like approaching negotiations that way. At the end of the day, someone is trying to sell a house and someone is trying to buy a house. And my job is to help the sellers understand their options, protect what matters most to them, and help guide them through that process calmly. Because there are usual multiple paths during negotiations. We can accept, we can counter, we can adjust terms, or we can reject completely. So every seller has different priorities and different non-negotiables. And I think that people usually make the best decisions when they feel really informed instead of emotionally overwhelmed. That brings us to inspections, appraisal, and closing. After the house goes under contract, there are a few more steps. If your buyers ask for inspections, usually those will happen first. I think inspections are very normal. They don't automatically mean something is wrong with your house. It's just a protection for their buyer going into making a very huge purchase. Then if the buyer is using financing, the bank will usually order an appraisal to make sure that their offer supports the purchase price. Then if the buyer is using financing, the bank will order an appraisal to confirm that the value supports the purchase price. After those pieces are completed, we move into the final stretch towards closing. This is where final paperwork gets signed and the transaction is recorded, ownership transfers, and then the next chapter starts. While every situation is a little bit different, I hope this video helped make the process feel a little less overwhelming, because I really do think that a huge part of real estate is simply helping people feel informed, supported, and guided through a major transition in their life. So if you're in the Dubuque area and you've been thinking about selling your home, even if you're still in the early stages of the process and you just have a few questions, feel free to reach out to me. And if videos like this are helpful, make sure to subscribe, because I'm going to be making more videos walking through the different parts of the buying and selling process here in Dubuque.